Hello everyone, this is Shadow the Rat, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing the All Living Things Small Animal Home Cage from PetSmart. Now I will note that this cage seems to be almost identical to the Living Room Deluxe Ferret Home by Ware, except for the bar spacing. This is actually the first rat cage I had back when I first got rats, so the first thing I'm going to go over in this video are the pros of this cage. Now the first pro I want to go over is the fact that this cage has 1/2 inch bar spacing. If you've had young rats or even small adult rats, you'll know that they can fit through really tight spots. So 1/2 inch bar spacing is really the ideal bar spacing for any rat cage because it allows you to have rats of any age living inside it and they won't be able to escape. Another pro is the fact that all the doors on this cage have a pretty secure lock. All of these doors lock from the outside, meaning the rats have no way to access the locking mechanism and get out. In this case, there are two different kinds of doors. In the smaller one up front, you have to push together the two metal pieces in order to lock it and press inwards, and then you also have to push them together and pull outwards if you want to open up the cage. With the doors on the side, you just have a simple sliding mechanism, so that means that you have basically this little bolt in the middle, and you have to slide the metal piece over it in order to lock the cage. And from my own experience with the cage, I can tell you there is no way a rat is opening it. It requires a significant amount of force to actually open up any of these locks. So the next pro I want to talk about is the fact that this cage has wheels. So it's kind of like the Critter Nation in the fact that you can take off the wheels if you don't want them, but if you have wheels on the cage, you can actually move it around, which is absolutely great. This means that even when the cage is heavy and full, you can still move it around really easily. So the next pro I want to talk about is the fact that this cage is fairly large and it can house up to probably 7 rats or maybe even more. You have all these different platforms and the rats get to jump from place to place. They have bars to climb up and down the cage, and there's plenty of room to hang stuff like hammocks or any sort of toys you want for your rats. Now, of course, as with any cage, there are going to be some downsides, so I'm going to go over those next. Now, my first con is the fact that this cage comes with really tiny shelves. These shelves are the biggest issue I have with the cage because, oh my god, these things. First of all, they're really tiny, like I said, so when you put them in the cage, you can't really put anything on them. Now, you are actually supposed to put them next to each other, which is great, you know, it's nice to be able to move things around, but the fact is they have this little outline, which means that even if you put them next to each other, it's just not very easy to put anything on it. They suffer from a similar issue as the Critter Nation as well because they are shallow. They're so shallow that you can't really put bedding on it. Just in general, it's really hard to cover them in substrate. Another issue with the shelves is the fact that the little clip on the side that you use to push down and keep it sturdy on the wire bars is really easy to break, and that's not really something you want, especially when you have a cage that has a lot of height in it. Now, I will give the shelves some credit because they don't break when the rats are on them. It's more like you're trying to snap it in the cage and suddenly it will break on you, which is just not fun at all. Many of my little shelf clips broke really quickly, which was just not very nice considering that the cage was still pretty new at that point. So the next thing I have issue with is the fact that the base pan is really strange. So first of all, when you take it out, it has this whole mechanism of having to scoot it out from the side, and oh gosh, it's just a lot more of a hassle to pull out than in other cages. And another issue I have with it is the fact that you can't really put bedding in there very easily because it's not exactly deep enough for bedding, but on the other hand, it's also too deep to really attach fleece easily. So it's kind of the worst of both worlds for me because it's hard to use bedding effectively and it's hard to use fleece effectively. I ended up using bedding in my cage and it was okay, I guess. I mean, it didn't get everywhere, but ideally I would have liked a deeper pan if they were going for the bedding. And of course you can get around this by making your own scatter guards or bedding guards, whatever you want to call them, but it would still be nice if the pan came ideal for either bedding or fleece. I mean, it just kind of sucks that it doesn't work very well for either one. So the next thing I want to talk about is the fact that cleaning this cage is just, it's a hassle. I don't know how else to describe it because, oh my god, accessing everything is difficult. So you want to access part of the cage, right? In the front. How do you do this? Well, you either have to go in through the side, and they call these doors breeder doors, and they open up really wide like the Critter Nation's doors, but they're on the side of the cage, and they're only on one side of the cage. which is, oh god, why did they do that? I don't know why, but it means that if you're trying to attach stuff to the left side of the cage, it's so difficult. Going back to my small door, this also makes rat access extremely difficult. So if you have the cage in a corner like I did, that means you can't access the two wide doors on the side. That means that all your rat access is going to come through the two small front doors. And oh gosh, getting a shy or scared rat out this way is not fun. If you have a confident rat, like my rat Shadow, she came right out, that's absolutely fine. But if you have a shy rat like my rat Sonic, oh gosh, trying to get them through the door, trying to get your hand inside the cage, it's just not easy. Honestly, I think that any rat cage should give you full access to the interior so you can at least access your rats really quickly, really easily if you need to. So the next thing I have issue with is the fact that putting it together is just not fun. I mean, it's kind of like the Critter Nation in that it tells you don't need any tools, but you kind of do. If you bring a rubber mallet, it's going to be a lot easier to put together. I did not bring a rubber mallet, and it took me and my mom, I think, 2.5 hours to put it together, and this is only made worse because the instruction booklet does not really help you too much. I think we actually ended up throwing it away because it was not helpful at all. And my final con is the fact that this cage is just so expensive. I mean, I just looked it up and it's around $200, which for a cage this size is not really worth it. Maybe check secondhand places like Craigslist. You can probably find it for cheaper in these places, and if you can, then it can make a really great cage. So yeah, that's really all I have for you in this video. Hopefully it was helpful to anyone thinking about buying this cage. If you guys would like any more rat care tips or rat trick training tips, feel free to visit my website at www.rattricks.weebly.com, link in the description. Other than that, I hope you have a wonderful day and hope to see you next time. Bye!